All right, welcome back to the channel. Derek James, the trainer of Errol Spence Jr., tells the truth about Al Haymon, his impact on boxing, and we're going to talk about that in this video. All right. Welcome back to the channel. This is one of my favorite subjects to talk about in boxing, and I'm very glad that Derek James brought this up and said it. It's something I've been talking about on this channel for the last couple years, and I think it is very important. Derek James, talking about the PBC and talking about Al Haymon, said that Al Haymon has changed the way other promoters have to do business by forcing them to pay fighters the money that they are worth. Now, for many people, that sounds like that sounds crazy. I don't get how it sounds that way to people, but I have said that for a while. Derek James is saying it. You've heard Bob Arum say it begrudgingly, and it is the simple truth of the matter that boxers, whether or not they are with PBC or whether they're with HBO or whether they're with Showtime, HBO's not around anymore, whether they're with Showtime or whether they're with DAZN, really do have Al Haymon, and in my opinion also to a smaller degree, Don King, to thank for the fact that these guys are making so much money. Bob Arum came out and said, in talking about the comparison between the UFC and boxing, how the top level guys make much more money in boxing than they do in the UFC. Now, I don't have the UFC's paychecks, or I can't tell you how much money those guys make, but I definitely know for the top level fighters, that is true. But the question is, why is that the case? And I think that this is a really good opportunity to have do a bit of an educational video. We're in the middle of this coronavirus, but not just me, other boxing channels, cats in the LDBC, people in new media, still talking about boxing, still trying to keep boxing in the forefront. But I really think that this is a great time to understand, for the casual boxing fan or the hardcore boxing fan that has never really thought about it, why it is exactly that Al Haymon had to actually force promoters to pay fighters what they're worth. Now, we a lot of times would just chalk that up to these guys just being evil people. Bob Arum is cheap, whatever. Promoters are crooks. They're just trying to keep the money to them. They're just trying to keep the money to themselves. And I think in certain circumstances that's true. But really, the main reason for that is the business model that boxing operates under. It is the relationship between the promoter and the fighter that causes fighters to make less money than they should make. And it's not necessarily just to rip off the fighter in an individual fight. When you have the promoter has a job, the fighter has a job, and their jobs are in opposition to one another. You would think, because the promoter puts the fight on, that there wouldn't necessarily be a conflict of interest between the two guys, but between the two people, it could be a female too. But it's an absolutely huge conflict of interest, because the fighter, and you hear Floyd Mayweather Jr. say this a lot, the fighter is a prize fighter. They are fighting to make money. The promoter is promoting fights to make money. But the fighter and the promoter have an issue, because the promoter wants to get as many fights as he can get out of that fighter. The fighter, on the other hand, wants to make as much money as they possibly can in a fight, and hopefully get enough money in their savings account where they no longer have to fight. And at that point, it becomes a choice for them as to whether or not they want to fight or not. And considering where we are right now, as far as the stoppage in boxing and the stoppage of a lot of people's work opportunities just throughout the world, it's essential for fighters to understand this. Because if a fighter is successful in getting as much money as he possibly could get for a fight, right? Like think of like the big money fighters today, right? Deontay Wilder lost a fight to Tyson Fury, but Deontay Wilder made, I don't know, man, he made $30-40 million in that fight. Deontay Wilder can either fight again or he can choose not to fight again. He can absolutely positively walk away. He can walk away like Lennox Lewis walked away from the Vitaly Klitschko fight because he has so much money in his bank. Now think if you are a promoter of Deontay Wilder, whether or not you think that's a good thing. Now you might want another 5-6 fights out of Deontay Wilder because Deontay Wilder is the marquee fighter, and you have 6, 7, 8, 9 other fighters that fight for you that will fight on those same cards that Deontay Wilder is headlining. So if Deontay Wilder decides not to fight, then you not only does the promoter lose the money that comes from that particular fighter, but he also loses the opportunity to market, to sell, and to earn money off of the other 7 or 8 fighters that fight on that particular card. So what does a boxing promoter need to do in order to make that sure that they have longevity for their promotional outfit? They need to make sure that not only do they need to earn as much money as they can get out of each fight, but they also need to make sure that the boxer does not earn so much money that he's in a situation where he doesn't have to fight again. Or he earns so much money that he is not in a situation where he needs to train as actively as he had been training before, right? You see this, and we're gonna talk about that in a video with where Errol Spence Jr. mentioned what happened, what he went through after he made it in that big money fight with Kell Brook, and then he had the Lamont Peterson fight. But when it came around to Mikey Garcia, he lost motivation. He blew up to almost 100. He said in this interview with Ray Flores that he got up to as high as 190 pounds. And that's a 147 pound fighter, man. That's a 43 pound. He's 43 pounds overweight. Why? Because he has a ton of money in the bank and he is not as motivated as he was when he was broke, right? Because there were no clubs. When you're broke, there are no clubs to go to. When you're broke, there are no girls hanging around and there are no rappers wanting to hang out with you and do rap songs with you and walk out with you and you live in the life of a star. When you're broke, you don't have any of those distractions. You have nothing but the hunger and the desire to get to where you want to be. And that's why it's so very, very rare that fighters that make massive amounts of money are able to continue to train the way that they did when they were hungry. Shout out to Floyd Mayweather Jr. for that. But so that is the balance that the promoter wants to keep. Now, what did Al Haymon do? Al Haymon blew up the game because Al Haymon was not coming at fighters as if he was a promoter. He came at them as an advisor, as a manager, and he gets paid off of a percentage of the purse that the fighter earns. That being the case, it's in his interest. It's in the interest of a manager usually, or it should be, at least on the outside looking in. It should be in the interest of a manager, in the interest of an advisor, to ensure that the fighter gets as much money as they possibly can get in an individual fight, because they don't because if the fighter makes a bunch of money, they make that much more money. Versus the promoter, where the promoter, if they pay out of the total amount of money that was earned in the fight, the more money they pay to the fight to that particular fighter, the less money they have, at least for their organizations. I also know that they're supposed to take maybe like a percentage of the purse from the fighter. So there's a little bit of that in there, but you get my point. Now, what happened with Al Haymon though, when Al Haymon did that with Floyd Mayweather Jr., and he did it with all those fighters that came over from Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy, he then you have, and he's setting up situations where these guys are making a lot of money and for every fight that they're taking. that shifted what Matchroom Boxing can do. That shifts what Golden Boy Promotions can do and what Top Rank can do, because they have to compete for those fighters against the PBC, and the PBC's record for getting you paid was big. And you heard all of that disappointment in the voice of Bob Arum when he originally sued Al Haymon in the PBC, and Oscar De La Hoya sued Al Haymon in the PBC. You had also Kathy Duva, who was saying this model that they have, it'll never work. It's gonna, that's the model that people were talking about, and the model that the media got behind attacking through the early stages of the PBC. Hence the rumors of them going broke and they spending all this money. This model cannot work. But now that they still have the same model, they've been just as successful. That forces fighters like that forces Bob Arum, if he wants to keep a Terrence Crawford, to offer Terrence Crawford. Dang, man, I'm not gonna edit that out, man. I just dropped my hope I didn't break my speakers. It forces him to offer large guaranteed purses to guys like Terrence Crawford, to Vasily Lomachenko, and say, hold on, man, we're not just going to have the minimum amount that you can earn in your contract. We're going to have as in, they have those minimums, like the minimum that they'll pay you. If you raise that minimum from, say, $10,000 minimum, because I've seen those in those agreements, to a $3 million minimum, now you're having these guys be able to sit around, but then they can also choose when they want to fight, if they don't want to fight, right? So what Derek James said was 100% correct. I think it's a very, very good thing for boxers because in the situation that we're in right now, the people that have that money in their savings account, they're the ones that are going to be able to be comfortable. They're the ones that are going to be able to train through this. The people that do not have that, the people that have a promoter that is basically trying to keep these dudes living check by check, they're going to be struggling because there's nothing for the promoters to give them. You know what I mean? So anyway, great observation by Derek James. I thought I would take this opportunity to walk through that. I used to have that conversation on the channel on every couple months, but it's been a while since I've had an opportunity to talk about it. But this whole Corona thing, what's going on with this, should tell you exactly why. Is if you're a boxer, you would like to be in a situation these guys are on those PBC, where they don't have to fight every 5 minutes, and they have a big enough source of money to be able to last them through very, very tough times. But anyway, it is what it is. You let me know what you think in the comment section. With that, I'm out. Peace.